We'd like to welcome you to an exclusive Raised on Real Estate podcast. Greg Angello with you here on a Tuesday. Just wrapping up, quick little holiday on MLK, Martin Luther King Day. We had a snow day as well. We want to thank all of those of you who have been checking out our podcast on the Roar. We talked about it before. We have a co-host. You've been hearing about it for about 2 weeks now. And finally, we do have the co-host with us, Brock Zevan, and he is actually in the house, and we are excited to have him here. What is going on there, Brock?
Hello. What's going on, Greg? How you doing today, buddy?
You know, all things being equal, things are okay.
It just feels like it's been, we've been practicing, rehearsing, and I don't know if I have my radio voice, podcast voice, but here it is. This is what you get.
So we did do a podcast with Brock last year. It was called Which Direction Are You Going? Mm-hmm. Thought that was really good. It was interesting because that was the first time that I had done a podcast with Brock, and I was doing those before Brock was, that him and I actually, I think at some point were actually working together. And I've said in that podcast that, we have a history together. We've worked together for the last year or so, and we'll talk just a little bit about that before we get into the nuts and bolts of what we're doing. But he really liked being on the podcast. It brought out a lot of good stuff because at that point you were basically talking about things that were going on in your life, and you actually had an event that was going on.
I did. Yeah, there was, it was kind of like different being on a podcast. Even now, just being with you, I'm so used to being on Facebook and YouTube all the time where I'm like checking my face and looking at everything, and now just being here, it's pretty cool. It's like a different type of animal here with podcasts. It's pretty cool. I'm very, very excited about this opportunity that you presented, and it triggered when you and I did our first podcast. That was literally my first one that I did, which is a true podcast.
Right. But you do a lot of, you always got a headphone on, yes, most of the time, because when I see you pretty much every day, you've got your rabbit ears on.
I do.
So you're either doing a Zoom with other people, and that's the way that you do your business in real estate, by making calls, because that's a huge part of your business. So it should be kind of comfortable that you're actually talking into a microphone, because you do it pretty much all day.
It is. It's just... it's different for whatever reason, but I'm constantly either on Zoom, I was on 2 this morning already, but I do all my buyer consultations are on Zoom, my listing presentations sometimes are on. COVID really kind of took that to the next level of being on Zoom, and then I'm always doing my coaching stuff on Facebook Live and those things. So being on a podcast, one of my coaches was talking about it, and I was like, you know what? I want to do it. I'm doing it in 2022, and I've been listening to yours, and I see what you do, and I'm like, I'm just going to text you. And that's how it kind of started.
Yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit about that because, I've been doing my podcast, and I know that even last year I wanted to sort of raise the bar on it, wanted to get more active in it and do other things, and sometimes it can be a challenge with trying to do business and taking the time to do a podcast. But as you said, I was actually up in I was in Knoxville. I was visiting my brother-in-law and his wife, and they had a new baby, and so we were up there just probably around maybe a week before Christmas, having Christmas with them. And then I get a text from you, and it's like, hey man, I just want to let you know that I'm kind of interested in doing a podcast with you, and if you don't want to do it, just tell me no.
I did. I was just I'm just going to throw it out there and see what it says.
Well, that's a really good way to start off. It's so just let me know what you think, and if you want to do it, we can talk more about it. And my response was, I'm open to anything, right? That's really the way it is. So
you were, and I was pretty excited about it because I'm always like, well, if you don't ask, you don't know. And so I was just throwing that fishing line out there, and I know this is your baby, so I'm very, very excited about being able to be on here because you've been doing this for a while. How long?
So I think the first one I did was it was in July of 2019 is when I did it, because I was only here, that was probably about 7 months since I've been here, and when we moved down from Michigan. And talked about it before, I have a radio background, and I saw people doing podcasts, and I'm like, I can do that. I can do a podcast. And so it sort of took off that way, because I think part of it for me is I sort of use this as sort of like a release to some way to do it. Maybe it's kind of like therapy. You can look at it that way, personal therapy. And so because some of the podcasts I do is just about me talking and things like that, even when we were going through COVID. I didn't have too many people to talk to.
Well, here's the thing. When it came to, like, if you're just out there thinking about a podcast, it's very overwhelming. I don't know about you, but for me, it was very overwhelming. And if you guys stay tuned soon, you'll see some of our stuff on our Facebook and different platforms that we have. But, like, literally, I'm staring at, Greg's got, like, a laptop open, his cell phone's open, there's this mixing board here, we got cords everywhere, microphones, headsets. Like, I feel like I'm in a professional studio for what this is, and it is very overwhelming, but it's so cool. It's just a very unique, and you have to have something. For me, I wanted to be part of something that you've already, like, what you created, which one is we get along very well, and I think that's an important ingredient when you're co-hosting and you're doing this type of stuff, but we both bring something to the table because this whole electronic stuff is, like, way over my head. So it's very, very impressive. Once everybody sees this, you're going to be like, wow, look at that. That's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah, and I've seen some boards that they're like triple this stuff.
Wow.
And that's like way over my head. So it took me a little while to try to figure this out because we're basically running 2 microphones and we've got a phone jack and we've got auxiliary, and then we're running through the laptop because we were doing the recording at the same time. So all of that is kind of cool. But back in the radio day, it was kind of like this, but we had an engineer running that stuff, so I didn't have to deal with it. It took a little bit of time, but really trying to get the editing and then some of the things that I do that some other podcasters, I mean, there's so many of them out there, but I think the music stuff that I do on it, people kind of like it. I like it, and that was it. So, but anyway, like what in the world is going on here with this weather? I mean, every time I look around it looks like I'm either in New York, I'm up in Michigan, and there's snow everywhere. I mean, what state are we in?
We were in a state of freezing, that's for sure. It was cold, and I had my 3-year-old, so I got 2 kids, 3-year-old Bryce and a 9-year-old Brielle, and, like, literally the day of when it snowed, it was like I was fighting for them not to go outside, like, at 6:30 in the morning. It's still dark out, and they were already out there, so it was cool to see their excitement. But yeah, I'm ready for spring.
And I don't think that we're going to be getting it anytime soon. We looked at the forecast, and we've got rain coming in a day or two, and then we've got more snow.
It's supposed to snow this weekend, they're saying. This is Charlotte.
See, the challenge is like, they don't, like, I don't think they know what salt is, right?
No.
It's either we'll put it on our food, but we're not going to put it on the street. So everyone's like, you got to drive gingerly, man. You see one little tiny little piece of ice or snow chuckle or something in the road, and people are like slowing down to like inches to go through it. And it's just insane. But, it's just one of the things we have to deal with. And it's a challenge. So I think that's really is part of our podcast today is we're going to talk about challenges and not just from the weather. Just basically what we do in this business. And so one of the things I think that's really important that I want people to sort of grasp, because I've mentioned this before on other podcasts about, what Brock does. So just quick history, Brock runs the team that we have with EXP, the offices of LLC. So he's the coach. He coaches the team. And it's very dynamic the way that you do it. And so it's just something that just didn't happen overnight. This is something that's been going on a long time. And I encourage people to go back to the podcast that we've done before so you can get some idea of you, Brock, and what you've done. But I think that people really don't know is like you're doing this like 7 days a week. It really doesn't shut off, quite frankly.
Well, and I tell people I'm pretty sure their life is 7 days a week. Like you don't get a mental break at all in life. And if you have children, it just emphasizes it even more. So to me, real estate is part of that. And I'm passionate about it. And the other great thing about it is they say that 85% of people don't like their job. And I'm part of that 15% that do. And I love it. So to me, it's never a job when you get to enjoy what you're doing. And to be able to help people, like I was at the bottom of the barrel for quite some time. And now being able to, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, and that was kind of like how our topic came up for today, was like remembering some of those dark years and how you overcame them. So I just think that that's such a huge element in our business and in our personal life. So 7 days a week, yeah, I'm pretty sure we have challenges 7 days a week, and we have successes 7 days a week.
So when people are going through this process of our challenges, let's just sort of try to break this down. You've said this many times before. It's a mindset, right? Mm-hmm. Because you do this Monday through Friday. We have a mindset and motivation call that comes on about 8:15, and we can give you the information for that. More than happy to come on and listen to it as well. Doesn't matter what, any part of the country that you're in, you can come on and listen to it. So when you're dealing with your challenges that we're going to talk about, like what is the most difficult year or seasons, we can talk about that. And then also, where does the mindset sort of elevate yourself so that you can get through those challenges that we deal with every day?
So one of the things I'll just share with you, and you got it, I sent you a text message on it, and it's on my Facebook post right now, but like I'll literally use our issue that we had with the snow, okay? How my brain works, and it took me a very long time to get myself to this position, but like I'm shoveling the snow. It's still snowing. We're supposed to get more snow, and I'm shoveling. And then I had to shovel again because we had more snow. I got my little kids, and we're having a good old time. And I've had a couple neighbors come up to me while I'm shoveling, and they say to me, "Hey, why are you still shoveling, man? It's going to be like 50 on Tuesday. Like, just wait for it to melt." And I remember it was literally my neighbor. And I looked at him and I smiled at him and I said, "That's exactly why I'm doing it." Because to me, I attached it to the Jerry Rice quote that today I'm doing something that many people don't want to do. And if you apply it into your life, the littlest things that you do, how easy is it for us to always take the path of least resistance? How easy is it to look at that person's so lucky. I can't believe that person. But they had to do something when nobody else wanted to do it. And literally, to me, it was just a small, slow thing. I'm the only one in the cul-de-sac that did their driveway. I'm the only one right now that has the driveway that is salted, and like you literally can ride your bikes on there and not even get mud, snow, or anything on you. But to me, that's just a simple little ingredient of doing the small things every single day that other people don't want to do. And if you do that, the compound effect, and that's a whole nother, ball of wax to deal with. But I look at you, and you show up every day. I mean, you come to work every single day. You even work the weekends. I mean, there's sometimes you're texting me, "Hey, I'm making my calls on Sunday." I'm like, "Damn, he's making his calls on Sunday." I'm like, "Oh, gosh." But that's what separates you over time, and that's what gets you through the challenging parts of the day. Like, I'll even go on, like, not now, but, like, even some of the crazy stuff I do. I take a cold shower. Every time, well, Monday through Friday, I take a cold shower at the end of it. Why? It's because I don't like it. It's cold. It's uncomfortable. But when I don't want to do something the rest part of my day, I'm like, well, hell, I took a cold shower. I mean, it can't be that bad. Like, I did that, so let me do this over here. And so it pushes me to do things at a different level. And to me, that's just mindset. And just two little things that I did recently that's like, oh, okay, not a problem.
I thought you took cold showers because your hot water tank never works here.
That is true. I've gone on now. I'm on 7 days in a row of not having a cold shower. of having a cold shower. And my 3-year-old Bryce, he's okay with it. Like, literally, I've been having to, because I take the hot water. I boil these big pots with water and I put it in the bathtub, and that's how I've been giving him a bath. But I feel like I've been watching the show 1883. I don't know if anybody's watching that show, but I'm like, if they could do it back then, hell, I can do it over here. But for me, yeah, I'm tired of taking full cold showers. I'm ready for a warm shower.
So let me ask you this question then. So your neighbors that were like looking at you, wondering like why is he out there doing that? Because it's going to melt. And did you have a conversation of like why you're doing it, or did you just did it? Did you tell him this is why I do it and this what maybe what I do in my business?
No, I literally I smiled. I said, "Yeah, you're right." But I mean, think about yourself. How many times, or what do you do during your day where people probably think you're crazy? I mean, you drive all the way up to the office every single day. Could you work from home?
Yeah, I can do that.
Can you do everything you possibly can do at home that you do in the office?
Well, that's a good question. Probably no.
Okay. So what drives you to come drive up here every day then?
Because for me, and I think I've said it before, is that when I work at home, it doesn't, to me, feel like I'm working. It's like I'm just in my house. And because of the structure that I've had in my life, that I've always gone someplace to work, I've always like worked in an office. And so it's hard for me to, when I got into real estate and being self-employed, for me to separate the fact that being in my home is the same as me going to the office and working. So I have too many distractions when I'm at home, right? Because I have 2 dogs. My wife is home. You know, she works at home as well. And so there's days when Isaac is home. Sometimes he's, you know, doing remote. I just can't do that. And I think the other thing that I like to be around in an office environment is because to be around other people, because that's where my motivation and my energy comes from. It's very difficult for me to grab my energy level and raise it up when it's just me by myself, because I need someone else to increase my energy level. And that's what drives me. And that's the reason that I drive 35 minutes up here. And some people say, you drive all the way to Mint Hill to go to Cornelius? And I'm like, yeah, so what? If it was 45 minutes, I'd do it.
So let me ask you this question then. For people who don't have that option, because sometimes you're like, well, Brock, you don't understand. Like, I have to work from home because of COVID and whatever else is taking shape. So, like, what do you say to those type of people? Like, well, how do I get motivated then, Greg? Like, what do I do? Because you can just be like, you can't work from home, so you just go to your office. But, like, what do you say to people who literally have to work from home? What would you say to them?
If they want to get motivated?
Yeah.
Get on a Zoom call. Call somebody. Or maybe they're just one of these people that can work, they love to work alone. So that's the other thing about my personality. I don't like working alone. And heard this once before from someone else that's been in this business a long time. There's like 3 types. There's 3 types of real estate people. Those that they need to have their hand held every single day, no matter what. Very difficult for them to walk alone. You have those that are coachable, and you have those that are loners. And there are people in this business that, for whatever reason, they want to be by themselves and do their own thing. So I'm in the middle. I don't need my hand held, but I don't want to work alone. And so even for people who have to work from COVID, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is there a place that you can go? Maybe there's a coffee shop that you can go to that's maybe by yourself. But then again, we're getting back into the COVID thing. So I don't know. I really don't have a full answer on that one.
I think there's 2. I was thinking about the question I asked you and how you split them up into 3. I think there's in my mind, I look at it as 2. You got comfortable and uncomfortable. And you get to decide which direction you want to go in every single day. I was talking to somebody today on, he's going through a family situation and a separation and a divorce. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I want to stir that up. I said to him, then you have to make a decision on how badly you want custody of your child. Because it's not going to be an easy path. Like, you're going to have to be uncomfortable to get what you want. That's just what I've learned. That's the only place you can grow. So for those that are sitting at home, it's really, you can't, like, your brain can put you anywhere. It's very easy. So if somebody says, well, Brock, I don't know, like, I'm literally stuck at home. Okay. Well, do you have a bedroom inside your house that your office can be at? Oh yeah, that's where I'm at now. Have you painted the walls? Have you put in a mirage someplace? Have you put in a big TV to be able to look at, like, a place that you want to go, like the beach? Have you listened to any videos? Do you have music blaring? Do you have that type of element to take you to any place that you want to go at? Because I'm pretty sure if you went to my computer and put in Google Earth, you'd find some really crazy places that I get to go to during the day when I'm tired and I'm just like, I wonder what it's like on Mount Everest. I wonder what it's like on Fuji. I wonder what it's like in Spain. I wonder what it's like in the Middle East. Like, I Google these places just so I can escape to get there. And if your drive, whatever it is that you want to do in your life, say you want to go to the Caribbean, go to Google Earth, put in the Caribbean, put in the Bahamas, put in Aruba, put in whatever, Cozumel, whatever you want. So then that way you can go to your place and then come back to the real world and then have yourself with music, because I agree with you. I'm a very big person about synergy and being around people. But sometimes you can't get that all the time. I'm not going to use that as an excuse and be like, well, I guess I can't do this today. Like, today was, I don't know about you, but for me, I wasn't really, like, geared up to go to work today. It wasn't like, I mean, I've been off for 3 days or so. And it's just like, I don't know if I'm really ready for the grind today.
Well, for me, though, so yesterday was a challenge for me because, we were dealing with the snow on Sunday and the ice and everything else that was going on, and the roads were telling people to stay home and all this other stuff. And so it was really difficult for me to get motivated yesterday, even though it was, technically, it doesn't matter to me that it's a holiday, because how many calls did we make on New Year's Day, right? How many, really, business is business. It doesn't really matter what day it is.
Most people are home on holidays. That's why we do it.
Exactly. But for me, it was like, so today, I could have just said, you know what, I'll just stay home again today. But I'm like, I can't do that. Because what's going to happen is I'm going to fall back into this pattern of being just lazy. And to me, that's a problem. But the other thing that you just said, and I've been thinking about this, about, do you really have to stay home and work at home if you have the ability to get out just because of COVID? Or do you think that people are sort of using it as an excuse?
I think it's whatever they're comfortable with. Literally, I get out of my house every single day, no matter what. So when the snowstorm was happening, I still got out of my house, whether it went for a walk. My vehicle is pretty good in the snow, so it's like I literally drove around. I'm from New York, so like the snow to me was not a problem. But like literally, we dropped off. My parents live like 10 minutes from here. We dropped off. We made chicken noodle soup. I dropped it off at their house. My kids wanted McDonald's. We drove to McDonald's. It was closed. We went to another McDonald's. It was closed. We went to another McDonald's. It was closed. Did I think the next two McDonald's were going to be open? No, I honestly didn't think anything was going to be open. But it gave us an activity. It gave us something to get out of our house, to be able to do something. And so many people live in confined walls that they just think like, well, it's snowing, it's this. And that's just an example. So when things start to get really in their work life and the walls seem to be closer, to me, that's a time where you need to get out. You need to do something different. You need to talk to somebody. You need to call somebody. You need to pick up a phone. You need to go on Facebook. And I don't know, whatever it is, but I think we just get in such a routine that we just, look at you. What do? You get out of your house. You know what elements are in your house. And instead of just being like, well, it's just easier to work from home than it is for me to drive all the way up there. But today you drove all the way up here. The roads aren't like perfect, and you still took I'd say a chance. They're not that bad, but like you still got in your car and you drove up here. And here we are.
It was interesting. So I got to tell you this story, and then we'll get into the reason why we started this podcast today. People are like, what in the world are these guys talking about, man? Well, you know what? This is what it is. This is why you're tuning in. But here's what's interesting. So when I first learned how to drive, because I grew up in Southeast Michigan outside of Detroit, so it was 1978. And the instructor was the high school football coach. So he was the coach, and then he was also the driving instructor. And so we all had to like call him up, and he would tell us, what day you're gonna go and do your driving, because he was the one that was going to make sure that you knew how to drive and you were going to be able to get your license and all that. Well, it's November 1978. It was like probably one of the worst winters, and this freeway just opened. It was I-696. And so I drove to his home. I can't remember how I got there, but I think my dad dropped me off or whatever it was. And so we get to his house, and he's got the car, right? And so we get into it, and he's like, okay, we're going to just start driving around. Let's go on the freeway. So here it is on a Saturday morning. It's snowing out. I'm on a freeway, and he's reading a sports page. This is what was really cracking up. I don't know, Detroit News or whatever it was. And he's reading the sports page, and I'm driving. I have like no idea what I'm doing. The wipers are going, and he just keeps looking at me going, yeah, you're doing a good job, Greg. Just keep going straight. You're doing all right. And he's got the pedal on his side in case I was going too fast, right? And then he said to me, he goes, we've got some errands to do. My wife gave me a list, and so we've got some stuff to do. And it was like the drive cleaners. We had to go to the store, and there's snow building up all over, icing all over and everything else. And so, trying to make a long story short, I dropped him off at the car, and and it's like, so how was that? And he goes, you know what, Greg, if all of my players could do as well as you driving in snow like you just did, we would have a great football team, And so that was pretty much it. And so that's how I learned to drive. I guess the story was just that for me, I wasn't really scared that I was driving in the snow to do it, because that's what I was going to do. And that's the way that I did it. Some people would have said, I'm not getting in that car today. Something I'm just not going to do. It's too much for me. But I'm like, I'm going to do it. And that's the way that I handled it.
And I'm going to use the word some and replace it with many. I think many people are like that, more than they want to be. And one of the biggest things that I try to do is to change that outside of that element. Like, get outside of that many. Get outside, like, just, I mean, even if it's driving, I guess one of the calls I was on this morning talked about fear. It's just overcoming that fear, just doing it. I don't know. I just think that just so many of us live in that little bubble that we don't want to get out of our fear. And you're like, well, I mean, okay, not a problem. Let me go ahead and do it. And so, I don't know. I think that kind of even brings up like the whole thing where we started talking about our topic of like, what are we going to talk about? And it was like that, remember that fear, remember that challenge of like being January of what was that for you? What year that was for you in your life of, whew, I don't ever want to go back to that year. Do you have one of those?
Well, I mean, I've had those personally. Do you know about that? Yeah. You know, there's some things that have happened in my life personally that I would never, ever want to go back to. But in real estate, I think I would say that if I said that I'm not fearful of any day that comes around about what I'm going to do today and try to make money in this business, I'd be a liar. Because the different mindset about being self-employed in real estate versus having a regular job to me is this. We don't look at the day as between like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or whatever that time is. To me, everything is based on incremental blocks. Every minute of every hour is important, that you need to have some sort of accomplishment going on. Because you could be on the phone making calls and then you talk to someone and you're all excited because they want to meet you. And then the next day you call them up and they go, you know what, I decided that I'm not interested in selling now, but I appreciate you calling. So all that work that you just did for that time to build that up, to have that opportunity is now gone. So now you have to make up time. Some people who work, you know, W-2 employees or regular jobs, it's like you can go in the morning and you do your job and you know at the end of the day at 5 o'clock or 6, your day's over with, you had your day, and you're going to get paid. To me, that's always, time is so important in what we do because an hour could go by of not doing anything that's going to be income producing, and you can't get that time back. That's the way I look at it.
Well, I was making some notes down here of what I have. I mean, when you say the W-2 employee, I actually think that's the most dangerous position, dangerous job. Why is that, you might say? Because their season of life is schooling, get a job, start a family, retire, die. I mean, I know it sounds like mean, but like literally that's what your life is, because you're a W-2. You said it. Well, you don't have to worry. You get a paycheck every single week or month or whatever your paycheck scale is, and you just do your job. You're supposed to do it for 30 years. You get a pension and retirement. You retire and you raise a family, and then that's it. And so you get in this mundane lifestyle of going on a hamster wheel. Some of us saw the movie Groundhog Day, and literally that's what becomes your life. And not to say that those people are like dangerous or whatever, but I was that. I was a school teacher for 12 years, and that's what I lived, at W-2. I just knew that's as much money as I'm going to make. I was like, in order to save more, I had to spend less. I mean, that's pretty much how my thought process was. And now when you become a 1099, yes, the unknown and the scarcity of like the challenges are much higher because you don't know when your next paycheck is, but nobody can tell me how much money I can make. I can make as much money as I want to make, and been very fortunate many months. And I've also had some very challenging times. I mean, we're going to talk about what year here. For me, it was, so the question I asked myself, what year, what December was it for you that was probably one of the worst Decembers? Like, I'm really like, because, you know, everybody's rah, new year, new this, new that. And everybody talks about the COVID year, like, oh, 2020 was terrible. But like, I really don't buy into it too much because that was just choices people made. So for you, is there a December that comes out that really kind of like sticks to you? Like, I'm really not looking forward to this year.
I don't know. I think that because part of it with me is I'm at a place right now where some years ago I wasn't really concerned because there was like sort of like a cushion, right? So to me, it's like there's always been some sort of a cushion. I was talking with two of our team people after the open house that we did on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Because like right now, I kind of feel like I'm walking on a tightrope and there's no net. Mm-hmm. In years past, there's been a net down there, so if I fall, something's going to catch me, either what's in the bank account, that sort of thing. And so...
And then you're saying this December.
I'm really saying now because
okay.
I've got the bar set so high that what I need to accomplish, that I'm looking down that there's no net there. Because I got to get rid of the net. I got to get rid of my safety net. Because if I look down there and there's a safety net there, then how hard am I going to work to get where I want to be and do the numbers that I need to be? Because I've got to be in a position in my mind that's saying, I just can't like sit back and like it's a 2 or 3 snow days a week and it's not a big deal. To me, it's like a brand new plant that's coming out of the ground and it constantly needs to get water, right? That's the way that I feel like I've got to constantly have these opportunities for me to make money coming in all the time. And like before, if it was like, I can sit back and it's not a big deal because I wasn't really thinking more about just myself.
So let me ask you this question. Because the first thing that came to my mind when you talked about this net, you said the net's been there all your life or majority part of your last several years, correct? What this year decided that net was going to be removed? Like what made you like feel that the net, I got to remove the net? So how did you remove the net?
The net is removed because I don't want to continue in the position in the way that we're living now. I want to get to a better place. And the only way for me to get to a better place and have the things that we want to have for my family and everything else in my accomplishment of my goals is to get rid of that crutch. Maybe not so much a crutch, but that's the way that I look at it. Because I don't have a money tree in the backyard.
If you do, I'd like to know where you got it because I like to get one.
Yeah, I don't have it. And so there's been times, even before I got to December, that basically kind of like a frightful time of that I need to change the way that I think. Because I see other people around me in real estate doing numbers that I'm like, man, why can't I do those numbers? What is different that they're doing that I'm not doing? Because I want to have, it's not so much about the money, it's about the accomplishments so that you can move in a way without saying you can't move. Like if we wanted to go somewhere like a week from now, we really can't do that. We could, but it would be a financial hardship. It would be really dumb to do it.
So let me ask you this, not ask you, I'm going to share something with you, what I've learned. Have you heard the saying, what does money buy you?
Well, yeah, everyone thinks that money buys you happiness. Yeah.
So what I've learned that money buys you choices. That's all money does. Money allows you the opportunity to make choices that majority of other people can't do. Whether it's to buy a brand new car. I use the analogy all the time that when you're going to go fly someplace, you get choices. The rich people who have money get to decide whether or not they're flying in their private jet, whether they're flying in some sort of special aircraft. They get to choose what time period. They get to choose whether it's going to be nonstop. Then they get to choose whether it's going to be in first class. Then they can choose all these things. But if you don't have money, what are you looking at? All right, let's see. I can't fly Friday because that's a high peak day. We're going to have to fly Thursday, honey. And we're going to have to fly Thursday and come back Monday. But we're going to have to make 2 stops in Chicago and Philadelphia. Why is that? It's because we don't have the money, so our choices become limited. So one of the greatest things I've learned about it is money doesn't buy happiness. Money just buys me extra choices to be able to have and to do. And I want to do some of these things that my coaches and other people are doing. I'm like, oh, well, they just have more money than me, and now that's why they're able to do that. So I'm always fascinated by that. And when somebody taught that to me, it was just like, yeah, they do. They get to make a lot more choices. I thought it was the coolest thing when I talked to my coach, and I was just like, because I'm just like, oh, I'm going to work at the end of Christmas and everything else. And he made over $1 million. And I was like, wow. He goes, no, I netted $1 million. I was like, oh, okay. He goes, so I'm taking the last 2 weeks off of December. And I was like, wow, you're not worried about January. You're not worried about, he's like, no, I have a choice to be able to do that now because I made those hard choices January 1st to December 15th. And it's all about choices that he made during that time period. So when you said you removed the net, that's a choice you made because there's probably a higher pain than it is keeping that net. And when the pain gets high enough, that's when decisions are made. Just kind of like putting your hand above a candle. Like, we'll keep it there just so long. And then at some point, that pain is so intense that we have to move it. And I think that's what happened to you and where you are with your net now.
I would definitely agree that the pain, it's a different experience. It's not a physical pain, right, that I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of the mental pain of working very hard to try to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And then it's like, is it there or not? And so that's just a decision that I made. And so there are some people who, if they want to do whatever the numbers are for the year, because we've talked about this before, and people who listen to this podcast that are in real estate, they already know that. They know that out of 10% of the people in real estate do 90% of the work.
Mm-hmm.
What is the other 90% of agents doing? It's got to get down to either a pain level, or what are they really looking at that they want to accomplish that they feel maybe it's something they just can't go after. I don't know.
Most of the time is they don't know themselves. They really have no clue on what they're doing. I'm reading the book No Excuses and by Brian Tracy, and it talks about the 3%, 97% rule, that 3% of people actually write down what they're doing every day. 97% people don't. And that 3% end up making majority of the world's income because they've learned, and they don't do anything different to some extent except to write it down. Just literally have a game plan of what they're doing every day. Many times I use the analogy that people get in their car, and if you don't put in a GPS, you don't put in an address, you're just driving around forever aimlessly, not with any direction, and you don't get anywhere fast except losing, getting lost or, spending money on your gas. And then you come back in your driveway and you're like, what the hell did I do today? Probably nothing. And we do that over and over and over again for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's because we don't like to put in the address, but once you put in an address, you're going to get to your destination. I mean, would you agree?
Well, that's what it's there for,
yeah.
Right? Otherwise, you're just meandering around, going all over the place. And next thing you know, it's like an hour went by, like, where in the heck am I going?
Yeah.
What am I doing here?
Mm-hmm. We don't have a plan.
Right, you got to have a purpose, right? That's the purpose. Yeah, so I would say that probably...
That's pretty cool now. We're going to see it now, everybody. So we're going to see what Greg's got going on. There's accountability piece right there. I just think just even for the podcast right now, like, we're going to get to walk through Greg's life in these next couple weeks, these next couple months to see what he's doing. And hats off for you to even being vulnerable to share that with us today, because a lot of times people will come up with some fictitious story because they don't want to tell people what they're really going through. That's what Facebook is all about. It's like, look what I'm doing and look at my lifestyle. But really, if we put up all the pain and the sorrow and the anger and the challenges on Facebook, we probably wouldn't have as many people. But our stories would be all the same. It's just, so hats off to you for sharing that with us today.
Well, some of the people that I've had on this podcast before, some of their stories, like where they've gone and what got them to where they were. I would say that a common denominator, and you may agree with this, is that you've got to reach a certain pain level in your life that's going to force you to make that change. And so I'm just going to ask you, like, so what has been your most difficult year, your most difficult season that you've dealt with? Because there's a lot of different things going on because you have a lot of responsibility outside of the fact of your family and other things that you've done, because now you have people who kind of rely on Brock every day, like accountability calls and teams. So you've got a lot of other pressure just doing real estate every day.
No, I mean, 100%, like employees, they expect a paycheck. They expect these different types of things because now I'm like part of their livelihood. And that's been the scariest thing, being able to do that. So like I might not get a paycheck, but they're expecting a paycheck. And so I have to do that. The year that was to me the most challenging that I had, without a doubt, was December of 2018. December 11th of that year, that month, was the exact time period. I just finished a 2-year court trial on my property management, and I had to go in front of the real estate commission. It was miserable. I was in a room. I mean, I had to hire 2 attorneys on my defense, and being around all these attorneys in the real estate, this is your livelihood. I mean, I left school teaching to become a real estate agent. And if I didn't get out of this to some degree, I mean, I didn't know. I guess I was going back to school. I didn't really know what I was going to do. I had a little bit of an idea just in case, but for the most part. So yeah, December 2018 was one of the worst years because I lost my license for an entire year. So I had 9 people on my team. I still had employees, and I was still covering probably between rent, employees, everything else. I was still running about $15,000 for my business on expenses each month. And so you got to figure out a way to be able to do that. And I remember the owner of the company at the time period brought me in his office, and I was with my broker in charge and the team leader, and they're like, "What are you going to do? You don't have a license. Like, are you going back to school? Like, what is your game plan?" And that was, to me, like the biggest deciding factor that churned for me, because I said, that's exactly what I needed to hear. I'll be here every day. And that's what I just did. I showed up every single day. I mean, it was very, very challenging year, that 2019. But December, I was miserable. I was going through a separation. I was living in a $500,000 home. I didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out, as my dad would say to me. It was a very, very hard year. I had to empty out my retirement from my teaching to pay for my attorneys. The embezzlement case was very, very financially challenging. I mean, I'm a school teacher trying to make ends meet, and it ended up costing me about $72,000. And it was hard. I mean, it was, and I, looking back at it, God bless Laura, and she fought with me and she helped me, but it was hard. It really, really was challenging. And we were on rocky grounds anyways to begin with. So I only had Brielle at the time. Bryce wasn't born yet. But, just thinking about it right now, it's just like, whew, that was tough. And just knowing that entire year, and then I get about 4 or 5 months in, and then my firm that I was with told me I had to leave because they didn't really believe me that I'd show up every single day and I'd still do my Facebook post and my coaching, and people got a lot of heat from them, and they're like, "We can't handle you anymore. You got to go." And that was another tough. That was in July. It was right around my birthday, and I said, "Well, thank you for that birthday, gift for me. A card would have been nice, but telling me I had to leave the company was a very troublesome. I mean, I don't have any money, and now I got to try to find an office with no money, try to figure out how I'm going to be able to do it, upfit it, desk space, everything, and still carry that balance every single day or every single month." And I can dive deeper just to fast forward to let people know I am here today. I made it out alive. I'm okay. I'm perfectly fine. And my credit is I went from 9 people on a team to 18 people on a team. I coached harder than I ever could possibly coach. I found myself, and throughout the entire thing of learning how to do it the right way, the legal way, and how I was able to carry a reciprocating license to be able to pay a consultant, I still made $287,000 without a real estate license. So when somebody says to me, "I just can't do it," I'm like, "Do you have a license?" "Yeah." "Okay. Well, I did it without a license, so try that on," and I still made it out okay. So you better have a really, really good excuse for me. And so 2018, that December, was probably the hardest year I've ever faced.
And so those people who are listening to this, I mean, for me, when I'm listening to your story, and I've heard it before, but see, that's motivating to me. I have to look at like what you've gone through and the fact that you're still here, and then you've accomplished like leaps and bounds over that. And so that's this determination and the willpower and everything else and the things that you've also changed in your life as well. That helps me. It's not to say, well, poor Brock, look what all he went through, and I'm thank goodness I've never have to go through that. I don't look at it that way. Mm-hmm. I look at it sort of like, this is someone who's gone through things that I would never want to go through, and yet he's come out of it on the other side. To me, it's motivating for me, because if you align yourself with others that you either look up to, then that is going to help you grow, not only yourself personally, but what you want to accomplish. And that's the way that I look at it. The other thing, though, that I was thinking about is the other part for me is, I think the word I want to use is just basically selfishness. That was a big part of things with me in my life, even before I got married, because it was just really just about Greg. There was nobody else that relied on me. It was just me. Now, as you know, with what happened, after we got married and having Isaac and going through all of that, so there's a huge more responsibility. Mm-hmm. I've went through so much of my life in the past, especially with my drinking and all of that. It was such a selfish way of living. So much time was wasted just for like me and my drinking in the bottle. Mm-hmm. Right.
Drinking people, like, for those that are listening, and like, I'm 5 years sober. I'm the most selfish person you'll find. Like, I did anything. See, the problem with me was I was a smart, conniving, manipulating person, and I was a very bad person to be around. I wasn't very good at all. Like, so when you have that, like, I can outwit you, I can manipulate you to get what I wanted, and that's what made me very, very dangerous, is because people believed in me, people had faith in me, and I was doing really bad things behind it because I was completely selfish. It took a while for my ego, and I still fight it every single day. I mean, but like, I would lie like no other to get what I want. I remember certain days during that year, like, my car was literally being towed because it got repossessed. And the office that we were with an attorney, they're like, "Hey, Brock, your car is being towed." I was like, "Oh yeah, I had some issues with my radiator, so they're just going to tow it." Like, I don't even know how that even came out of my mouth. Lying became so natural to me. Not only did my wife's car got totaled. I mean, I would get foreclosure notices like all the time. "Oh yeah, don't worry, honey, I got it paid for it." But why did it come in again this month? "Oh, they must not have gotten my letter. I'm going to have to call them." Like, lying became just my normal, and I had to reprogram myself. Like, now me lying, I couldn't even imagine me. And it's that baggage you carry. So when you say you are selfish, don't take this the wrong way, but you still carry that with you. It's just you have to train your brain a different way to be able to take that selfishness and make it better. Like, I'm selfish now to make the team better. I'm selfish now to make my family better. My ex-wife, like, I have to pay her child support and alimony. Like, there's no way around that. And for me, like, alimony is one thing, but child support, I'm going to pay it. I'm going to be a jackass and not pay child support and whatever else. Like, I want to be selfish and take the money myself and fly here. But when you have a child, like you said, that's your number one. Your family, your wife, like, that becomes your number one. So take the selfishness and use it to your advantage, because a lot of people use it for the other way, especially how I used to be.
Exactly. I've channeled it. So the way I look at it is I'm challenging my energy in a different way than just for me, because there were so many times that I could have done something and I just decided that, you know what, it doesn't really matter because this is me, this is my life. The other point I was going to make about that is what we were talking about this morning. So those of you who don't know this, we're also on a prayer call. Try to as much as possible. And that was basically the thing that you were talking about this morning that came out of that one statement about promises. Promises that we say that we don't keep.
Yeah, a lot of people overpromise and underdeliver. And that's such a huge problem that I shouldn't say huge problem. It's just one of those things that they just don't do. Like that one lady that said it on the prayer call today. She's like, "I just got to speak slowly and not open up my mouth about overpromising things." And that's the biggest thing, especially in this real estate industry. "I'm going to sell your house in 2 weeks." Okay, what happens if you don't sell your house in 2 weeks? Like, there's no penalty by saying, "You know what, we're going to get your house sold as soon as possible, because we know that if we sell your house quickly in the time period you need it in and make the money that you want, you're going to be happy with us." There's no need to give them a date. I mean, hell, you're going to put yourself in a lot of, like, you'll be digging yourself out the entire contract of everything else that you do.
You know, it's interesting because I was at a listing appointment about maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and that's exactly what was happening to me with the seller. She wanted me to tell her exactly when I was going to get her house sold under contract. I kept telling her, I says, "Look, I know you want me to give you a date." I says, "But I can't do that." I said, "As soon as possible. We'd like to sell your house sooner than later. For me to tell you that as soon as we have the listing contract and it goes up live, that the next day you're under contract," I can't give you that. And quite frankly, she didn't like that.
Yeah.
She wanted a definite answer. She says, "Well, I need you to know, is it going to be 2 days? Is it going to be 3 days?" And I said, "Look, I don't have a crystal ball."
Yeah.
I said, I don't mean to be rude, but it would be wrong for me to tell you that on this date, it's going to be all over. Because then you're going to come to me and you go, "Well, this is what you promised me," and you're not doing it. And so where am I then? And there are agents who probably think that they do give them exactly what they want. That's going to be great.
No, it's so true on how that takes place. So I just think the language of your conversation is so very important, so you don't get yourself in those positions. You talked about, I don't know if we're at the point of the next podcast, but I know you were talking about, because the prayer call brought it into mind and different things, and then we did an accountability call of just like So we're talking about the mental capacity of what took place our worst December and what year that was. And for you right now, it's just that mindset, because you're physically not going to get hurt, right? I mean, you're not going to fall on the ground or go on a tightrope. At least I don't think you are. But it's the physical aspect, I think, of taking what we shared about anger, but also what goes on in a real estate daily life and some of the decisions that we make. We talk about money and choices, but some of the choices that we make are just general choices of where do we go out to lunch? What do we do? All these different little things. Where are we having dinner? How many times are we going out to dinner? Do I eat fatty foods? Do I eat healthy foods? Preparation, all that stuff. I think that's what we were going to talk about the next time around. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to talk about how anger, those sort of things can actually affect our health. But the other thing, though, you just brought up is that, have I had worst Decembers? Personally, I have. I went through a huge issue in my life where I lost basically my entire family in a year and a half. But see, I didn't have any control over that. That's why I could say, well, that was such a terrible time because, my father passed away. In fact, it was right around this week back in 2010. And then about a year and a half later, I lost the rest of my family. I lost my mother and my brother. So that was such a storm that I went through that I was actually going through. My life was basically 15 minutes at a time. I don't want to use the control like I can control things, but that was something that obviously was not foreseen. Those sort of things. The way that I look at it now is why I think that it's different this time is because I'm the one that's going to have to do the things that I need to do to get where I need to go. That's why I think that now it's much different than when it was 2, 3, 4 years ago, where there was that cushion. There was really not that much more fear what tomorrow was going to bring. Because I know you went through so many, call it a dark place that you went through. For me, I just feel like right now that there's some doors out there that are sort of like closing and closing and closing, and now I'm doing everything that I can to push those doors back open so that I can see everything in front of me.
Well, two things.
If that makes any sense.
No, it does. It reminded me of two things to say to you. One is when the doors close, stop preventing them from closing because they're supposed to be closed possibly. A lot of times we prevent things from happening thinking that this is the right way, but in all reality, we talked about it, when another door opens, another door will close. And we spend all our energy trying to keep a door open, but really, we should probably just let it go in its own path, because that door is probably meant to be closed for you because there's another door that wants to be open. But it's been so prolonged because you're spending all your energy and efforts trying to keep that door open. So that would be a huge ingredient that I would share with you. And for those that are on here listening in, sometimes that door is supposed to be closed. Close it. Let it go. But it's the unknown. It's that scarcity factor that many people just don't want to play into it. And that's when you really got to reflect on yourself. What is the best position for me? Or just just ride it out. It's going to be okay, because I know 100% guaranteed you have made it this far. You got up this morning, so whatever ugly situation you dealt with, you're okay today. The other thing I would say to you in reference is, well, I couldn't control what happened with my family. Yes, you could not control that situation, but you damn well can control how you reacted to it. There's many people who get things that happen, and one of the articles I was reading was about Hurricane Katrina and what takes place with it. And it's when your situation happened with your family, you could have closed up shop. You could have went back to drinking. You could have done this. You could have gotten into drugs. You could have been like, you know what, my life sucks. I'm not going to do this. You won't believe what happened to me. Gone in victim mode. But you made a choice after that. Instead of most people who don't make choices after that, what they do is they just go into that little cocoon and they stay in there. And that story with Hurricane Katrina, you can go back to where it hit, and you could still see some homes today that are still not even built up. They either wanted to go someplace else, they didn't want to go back to that type of environment, or some of them were just like, you know what, the drinking, the drugging, the doing whatever else was just much easier. Oh, poor me, this. And I just think so many people use whatever devastating factors. No, you don't get it, Brock. This is what happened to me. No, I do get it. I understand that. And so for me to tell you, you have that opportunity. No, I had some challenges, but look where I am today. I have a family. I have a son. I've moved. I've done this. And you made choices when many people would make other choices. So I think it's not so much how you couldn't prevent that from happening. Of course not. But you can change the way you make choices from the reaction of what took place and how you hold yourself. Because at some point, it's going to be a story that you're going to share with others. And they're going to be like, damn, that's crazy. And you've done this and you've done that. Whew. So to me, I think you can control. The Serenity prayer says it the most. And I think I share it with you often. It's like, just focus on the things you can control. When decisions come your way, try to make the best one and don't hold doors open.
Far as all of that, I kind of feel like this has been really good. It's almost like Raised on Real Estate has now become a therapy session. But no, it's...
Well, I tell you this. People, you got to understand this. When I coach people, if I can't... I always start off with your personal life. Well, but Brock, I hired you to be my coach. Yeah, I'm not going to get you anywhere if I don't clean out your closets and your skeleton. Because if you don't have a happy house, if you don't have a good life, if you're not fulfilled in your own home, if you're not enjoying your personal life, that doesn't matter what the hell I tell you to do in your business life, it will eventually fall apart. Because you can't maintain that type of mindset. Because when you go back home and you go to that personal life, it's all cluttered. So you got to get your personal life all cleaned up. You got to get your personal life organized because when you have a good relationship, when your bills are paid, when you're spending time with your kids, everybody's happy. There's food on the table. There's gas in the car. Life's easy. Life's very easy then. But when things are a little rocky at home, things are a little tight with money, kids aren't really doing what they need to do. They just got a bad grade at home. They got in trouble at school. Like, that's when you really get tested. But I'm pretty sure that's how majority of people's lives are. It's not easy every single day. So if I can control and help people with mindset and get their personal life organized, just like this Raised on Real Estate, like, it's January. Get your mental life, get your mental strength, get around people, join our 815 call, do these things. So then that way when you go to work, it's like, all right, I'm charged up. I at least have something to look forward to, because if not, the other way, you can have a great business, but I guarantee you're miserable at home. And it's not it only lasts for so long.
We are going to wrap this one up. Did we cover everything that we wanted to talk about on this one? I think we did.
Yeah, I think we both got our dates down, or our years, and we were able to reflect on that. And hopefully for those listening, you get to understand, like, we had those dark days, we had those dark times. And if that's one of you going through that, and like, I mean, it sounds like to me that's what Greg's going through in 2022. But we do know he's going to be okay, and you're going to be okay, and you're going to be fine. And 2022 December is going to be here sooner than you think. And let's have that goal of changing that mindset around, or changing that demeanor. Let's have that. I don't want to say net, because sometimes you put that net back, you go right back to where you were. So let's just get used to not having that net for you, and putting you in a position that's just the norm. And that's the success pattern. And for those that have choices, and choices will equal when you have that income. And we know you all can do it, because, hell, we're living proof.
We're going to talk about the next one that we're going to do is coming up in about 2 weeks or so, Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
We're going to come back in another podcast with Brock in about 2 weeks or so, right before Groundhog Day and first week of February. How we handle ourselves physically with anger and emotion has a huge effect on our bodies and our health. And Brock was talking about this on one of our morning calls and how important that is. So we hope that you've enjoyed this one. This is one of the things that I think I like about this podcast, is that if you want to open things up and look at things kind of like from, at least for me, this was sort of raw. This has been sort of like an exposure, which is good. You can just see what we're doing here, right? Everything is sort of like transparent, and we appreciate that. We know that many of you out there are probably going through the same thing. If you've grabbed something from this, if you can identify with it, we appreciate it. We appreciate you coming back and hearing more what we're doing. Check it out on our social media. We're all over the place. Subscribe to our podcast. You can go to iHeartRadio. You can go to Google Play. You can go to Amazon Music, wherever you want to, and just subscribe and tell other people about it.
Well, the other thing, too, I'd add is, if you saw something that resonated with you, like, make a comment. like send something to us. I don't know how all the different podcasts works and all the different sites and everything else, but you can make comments. You can share if you want something privately. Reach out to us. You can Google us. You can look us up as well. But like, we want to be a resource because we've been through that, and we know that you can't do it alone. Or at least I wasn't able to do it alone. I'm pretty sure Greg couldn't do it alone either. And so we want to be that resource. We want you to listen in, but we want to be able to make this valuable, and we want you to leave comments for us. Whether you like it, didn't like it, I don't care. It's just when you're doing this stuff, this is the engagement is so important. So like, feel free to shoot us anything out there and leave a comment.
So all the negative stuff, you can send it to Brock's phone. All the good stuff, you can send it to me. No, that's going to do it for us on this one. It was great to have Brock with us and co-hosting for the first one. And we also appreciate the fact that we've got that new logo. We really like, I love that lion, right? The lion in the jungle. The lion battles every day in the jungle. And there's a reason why that lion does that.
Yep. Could be a whole podcast in itself.
That's right.
That lion and the gazelle.
So for Brock Zevan, this is Greg Angello for Raised on Real Estate. Thank you all for being here, and we'll talk to you all soon. Be safe out there. This has been a Planet One radio production.